Hi there, and welcome to the Own Your Expertise interview series. I'm Emily Crookston, owner and decider of all things at the Pocket PhD. I am the ghostwriter for Rebels, Renegades, and Mavericks, and I love helping experts with big ideas get those ideas out of their heads and into the world. Today, I'm sitting down with Maren Wood. She's the founder of Beyond Professoriate. Beyond Prof is a mission-driven organization dedicated to helping graduate students and PhDs thrive in today's fast-changing economy. So this topic, this person, this whole concept is pretty near and dear to my heart. So I'm really excited to talk to Maren today. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Maren. Would you like to tell us a little bit more about who you work with, what you do?
Yeah, sure. So initially, when I started the business, it's kind of evolved over time. I was doing research and writing and some consulting work early on for like the Chronicle of Higher Education and the American Historical Association. And then at the same time, I was getting the people that seemed most interested in my research were the graduate students and the postdocs and the adjuncts who were trying to figure out how to leverage their degrees. And so early on, while I was doing that consulting, I started to build up sort of one-on-one offerings for people. So I was doing this very much as a solopreneur, doing courses and on-campus workshops and that kind of thing. And that's very different from how things have evolved. So about 3 years ago, when one of my contracts had wrapped up, I decided to launch Beyond Prof as a full-time startup. And I had no idea what I was getting myself into whatsoever. And initially, because I had been so used to working with one-on-one with individuals, my initial idea behind the business was that we were going to do, B2C. We were going to focus on courses and coaching and the community. But gradually over time, it just became very obvious that chasing broke, desperate people for small amounts of money is an exhausting way to run a business. And although it seems scalable, it actually isn't. And so we really shifted here the last year to start focusing on partnering with universities, which is a whole different other learning experience to be shifting from a B2C to a B2B. But we've done that shift now this year. I think understanding how universities work, understanding that the long sales process of working with universities as a place to do a B2B has been a steep learning curve, but it's also been really enjoyable.
Well, I like that shift from working with individual PhDs and trying to coach them to let's work with institutions. And actually, it seems to me that if you're really thinking about trying to change the industry of academia so that PhDs are thinking more in line with how can I get a job after I'm done rather than how can I go and become a professor. It seems like the institutions is a smart shift to make. Like that's your goal.
Yeah. And as a mission-driven organization, if we can do an intervention earlier, and I think you know this from your own personal experience, the longer you're in higher ed on this faculty career pathway, the harder it is to make that career transition, either when you figure out like this is just a bad career fit, or when you finally figure out there aren't opportunities for you to grow, or when you finally are just so broke and burnt out of chasing this dream, then we want people to feel empowered or to know that they can make a change and know to do that more quickly. Begin to end that languishing process that we see that where people are spending 3 to 5 years to make a career transition. And so, yeah, really trying to think about how do we get our programming and resources into the hands of the user earlier so that they can make better decisions sooner and more quickly and be more nimble, especially, I mean, we were doing this pre-COVID, but now it's like, you got to be nimble. You got to go where the jobs are.
Absolutely. Yeah. Very cool. I know you were in academia, you decided to leave that. You went into research, then you sort of moved into this coaching realm with working with PhDs, and now you're like the CEO. So I wonder if you could talk a little bit about your personal experience of that, how you see the path to getting there, your own evolution as opposed to the business evolution.
My own evolution. I think, talking about owning your expertise, I think a lot of this required a mental shift in my own brain. I see this with PhDs that we have negative assumptions about business and industry. We have negative assumptions about what that means. And I think that largely comes from just a lack of exposure to the kinds of decisions you have to make, the problem solving, the energy, the fast pacedness of it. And I think part of the evolution of the business reflects my own evolution of wanting to stay much closer to what I knew, which was like this research and institutions. And it was safe, and it made me feel like I was still a junior scholar, or I was still connected to higher ed.
Yeah.
And that was something that was really, I think, important for me like as an individual, that I wasn't prepared to rip myself out of a higher ed environment entirely altogether, or nor was I open to the idea that running a business was a legitimate enterprise.
Ah,
And so part of that evolution, I think, is also just a slow re-education about what it means to run a business, what my own interests and passions are, shedding an academic identity that, I grew up with that idea that I was going to be a professor. I didn't do anything else. And sort of taking that time to reflect on what my talents are. And then partly it's just, then once you realize that this is a cool, interesting thing to do that has legitimacy behind it, then there's the process of like, okay, but I don't actually know anything. And then over the last 3 years, I think it's just been a process of learning, of taking the time to fail. Like the first idea or the first iteration of this business didn't succeed the way I wanted it to. We still support individual PhDs, but it's very different. It's no longer a major focus of the organization. And having to sort of eat that failure and then learn from that failure and then grow from that failure. And then not just seeing it as a failure, but just seeing it as a growing opportunity and taking those lessons and making some data-informed decisions and moving where the market is moving to, and then beginning to have successes,
Yeah, the process is so important. This is one of the things that I like to talk about too, because so when I started my business, I was coming from that world of academia, and I was like, just give me the syllabus, just teach me how to do this, just give me the steps, I'll do it, and then I'll be successful, and I really thought of it as a straight line, from A to B. Still need to take some notes and let me get there. And then someone, actually it was Ada Bartlett, you know her, she said, think of it as an experiment. And that all of a sudden made it like okay to fail. Because you try something and it doesn't work, it's not really failure. You pivot, you do something else. And the whole time before that, I had been thinking, if I don't figure this out, I am going to fail. If I don't get the path. Well, and we do the same thing with expertise, but then we see, it's actually a really messy process.
Yeah. And I think that for those of us that are leaving that academic space, I'm standing in front of like a third of the books that I read my comprehensive exams. Like what it takes to be an expert is a different kind of expertise. One of the things I always say that I like most when I do on campus workshops, and I say that I like most about entrepreneurship, is that like failure is not bad. You meet people at in meetups, or back in olden times when we could see people face to face, and they'll brag about like, oh, this is my third startup, and I went bankrupt, and then I sold my car, and then I mortgaged my house, and I've been divorced 4 times, but like this is the one that was successful. and so long as you're learning, right? So long as you're building skills, you can do a business, have it fail, but it's not actually a personal failure. And it's kind of a really refreshing aspect of the entrepreneurial culture of like, it's not a failure if you're learning. That's an opportunity. And that's just a very different way than in academia, where failure is shameful, and failure means you didn't know, and failure means that you're losing. And there's so much more intensity behind being a failure than there is in the entrepreneurial world. And it's such a breath of fresh air.
What would you say has helped you the most then in learning to own that expertise?
I'm one of those people that likes to think out loud. I like strategy conversations where people can give me feedback. I like to talk through problems and find solutions. So what's been really important, I think, for me in terms of owning the expertise is having conversations with people who I trust, who are doing in a similar space or not at all, but they have business background, and being able to have those conversations and being able to run ideas past the person and have them tweaked, but have them built upon, and then being able to put those into practice and seeing the success of that. So I think, again, the time, but also the team, I think is just really important. That you got to have people who want to build you up, who want you to be successful, who are there for you, but also for your brand and your business, and care about the success of both you as an individual, but the success of your organization, and are here for that. And I think that that's been really helpful. I think for us, we're really lucky because we are mission driven, and because people come to Beyond Prof for help, that oftentimes the people that become part of our team are people that are part of our space or community, and they're familiar with the brand. And so that's really important for a startup. You want to have people that are mission driven and passionate about your organization and understand what you're trying to build, and that they're excited to do that with you.
Well, thanks so much, Maren, for sitting down with me. Let us know where we can learn more about you.
Sure. Yeah. You can find me at beyondprof.com, and you can connect with me on LinkedIn, Maren Wood on LinkedIn.
Awesome. We'll put that in the show notes. Thanks so much, Maren. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Emily.